It was just before dawn on a chilly Friday morning in Atlanta when Malcolm Reed, a billionaire CEO of Reed Automotive Industries, quietly slipped into one of his lesser-known garages, a dim, cavernous structure tucked away on the outskirts of the city. Unlike the sparkling corporate headquarters or the glossy showroom floors where luxury sedans shimmered under pristine lights, this garage was old school, almost forgotten, housing vintage prototypes and vehicles that hadn't seen the light of day in years. For once, Malcolm wasn't wearing his custom-tailored navy suit or his signature polished wingtips. Today, he had disguised himself in faded jeans, a grease-streaked hoodie, and a tattered Braves cap pulled low over his silver-streaked hair. He wanted anonymity. He needed perspective. For the past 6 months, Malcolm had felt a gnawing emptiness despite running one of the most successful automotive conglomerates in the nation. Profits soared, shareholders smiled, and yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere along the road, he had lost touch with the beating heart of his empire, the people who built it, the ones who breathed life into the machines that had made his fortune. The garage was quiet, except for the echo of a single metallic clang reverberating through the space. Drawn by the rhythmic sound, Malcolm navigated past dusty classic cars and steel workbenches until his eyes landed on a lone figure. A tall, broad-shouldered black man in oil-streaked coveralls hunched over the gutted chassis of an old 1969 Camaro. Sparks cascaded from the grinder in his hands, and the man worked with a quiet intensity, completely immersed in his craft. Malcolm watched, intrigued. The man's movements were precise but unhurried, each turn of the wrench and adjustment of the engine calibrated with practiced ease. His brow furrowed in concentration, but his face carried a certain peace, a quiet pride that Malcolm hadn't seen in years, not even in his boardrooms lined with mahogany and glass. As Malcolm approached, the man glanced up, startled but calm. His dark brown eyes, clear and steady, locked onto Malcolm's. "You lost, man?" the mechanic asked with a faint, warm southern drawl. "I could ask you the same," Malcolm replied, voice low and even. "Not many people working in here at this hour." The man smiled and wiped his hands on a rag. "Name's Elijah. Elijah Carter. I come by early most days, fix up some of the old beauties no one cares about anymore. Helps me clear my head." He glanced fondly at the Camaro. "She's a gem. Needs patience, though. And respect." Malcolm introduced himself simply as Mac. He didn't want his name to cloud the moment. For the next 2 hours, they worked side by side, Malcolm assisting where he could, passing tools, holding flashlights, listening intently as Elijah explained carburetor intricacies or the balance of torque and timing. It wasn't just mechanics Elijah shared, it was philosophy. He spoke of how machines, like people, needed balance, care, and understanding. How one overlooked valve could unravel the entire system, just as a single ignored person in life could quietly break under pressure. There was something magnetic about Elijah. He wasn't boastful, but wise. Malcolm learned that Elijah had once dreamed of owning his own garage, but life had dealt heavy hands. His father's cancer had wiped out savings. His younger brother, a promising student, had been incarcerated after a wrongful arrest, consuming years of family resources in legal battles. Yet despite it all, Elijah remained optimistic and centered, pouring his heart into every bolt and piston. He believed in fixing things, not abandoning them, even when they were broken beyond recognition. Malcolm found himself returning to the garage every morning that week. Disguised as Mac, he labored beside Elijah, shared coffee from paper cups, and slowly peeled back layers of his own soul that had hardened over decades of corporate grind. One morning, Elijah mentioned, almost offhand, that he often repaired cars free of charge for struggling single mothers in the neighborhood or elderly veterans whose pensions couldn't cover auto repairs. "Machines can be cruel when they fail," he said softly. "But life's crueler when people don't have a way to move forward. A working car ain't just wheels. It's dignity. It's freedom." Malcolm felt a knot tighten in his throat. By the second week, the CEO's mind churned. He had spent years amassing wealth, yet here was a man whose quiet, selfless acts touched lives far deeper than any corporate merger. A man whose garage, with no official plaque or marble floors, served as a sanctuary for both cars and souls. One crisp morning, after tightening the final bolt on the Camaro's rebuilt engine, Elijah sighed contentedly. He turned to Mac and smiled. "You're good company, man. I don't know where you came from, but folks like you, who listen more than they talk, you're rare." He paused, glancing around the cavernous garage. "Sometimes I wonder if what I'm doing here even matters. You fix things. They break again. And you fix 'em again." His smile faded just a touch. "But maybe that's life." Malcolm's chest ached. He couldn't keep the truth any longer. "Elijah," he said, pulling the cap from his head and standing straighter. "My name isn't Mac. It's Malcolm Reed." He watched as confusion flashed across Elijah's face, quickly replaced by quiet shock. "This is my garage. I own Reed Automotive." He hesitated, then spoke with a vulnerability he hadn't shown in years. "You reminded me why I started this company in the first place. You reminded me why people matter more than profits." For the first time since they'd met, Elijah seemed at a loss for words. Slowly, a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "I guess you fooled me good, huh?" Malcolm nodded, a small grin playing on his lips. "You didn't just fix that Camaro, Elijah. You fixed something in me." A week later, Elijah Carter received a formal letter delivered to his modest apartment. Inside was a deed to a brand new, state-of-the-art auto shop fully funded by Reed Automotive, complete with equipment, tools, and startup capital. The sign out front would read, "Carter's Garage, where machines and people get a second chance." Alongside the deed was a personal letter from Malcolm. "Your hands build more than engines, Elijah. They build hope. And hope deserves a home." Months later, Carter's Garage became a community cornerstone. Not just a place for auto repairs, but a hub where young apprentices learned trades, veterans found work, and struggling families got their cars, and their dignity, restored free of charge. Malcolm visited often, not as a CEO but as a friend. He even set up a company-wide initiative called the Elijah Project, funding similar garages across underserved neighborhoods in the country. In the end, Malcolm Reed didn't just rediscover his purpose. He amplified Elijah's compassion into something vast and enduring. And Elijah? He proved that even in the quietest corners, a single act of kindness, powered by selflessness and skill, could spark change across miles and lives. Sometimes, the real engines of progress aren't the ones under the hood, but the hearts of people who simply refuse to stop fixing what's broken. And as Carter's Garage bustled every day, filled with laughter, learning, and second chances, one thing became certain: kindness, like a well-tuned machine, had the power to drive humanity forward forever.